So Andre's illness started in the months after his retirement in October 2017. In the beginning of 2018, it became clear that he had a stomach cancer, which had already partially spread to his liver, and he started on chemotherapy. What I found surprising and admirable was how he accepted his fate and got on with life despite his illness. As far as he could, he remained in good spirits and seemed to continue to enjoy the things that he did usually. He continued coming to the lab, collaborating with his colleagues. Outside the lab, he continued with his usual pleasures. Though eating was sometimes difficult, he continued reading, watching films, visiting art galleries. He started reviewing some of his old writings, trying to get them published, and became interested in a few classes on art that he was giving in a primary school. There were some days when he was in very great pain. Luckily, his ex-wife, Susanna, who was here, was there when he needed particular help, and he was incredibly relieved, happy, and grateful to her. He was also surprised and very appreciative of the warm support he got from people connected with our lab. In the weeks before Christmas, he seemed to be doing perfectly well. On the website we have prepared as a tribute to him, there's a video of him in a discussion with some of us at a Christmas dinner we had. You can see he's really pretty much his usual self. But then just before Christmas, he received negative results on the state of his tumors. His treatment was changed, but he barely ate and became much weaker. He was hospitalized on the 2nd of January, unable to eat. He died after a day or two of great pain from complications. That was last Monday, 7th, in the afternoon. Susanna, his brother Jinu, and his friend Martin were by his side. His 67th birthday would have been this coming Friday, on the 18th. Andre went to school in Romania. I understand that even as an adolescent, he was interested in writing. Once he told me that he had actually been remarked in literary circles as an upcoming talent as he was an adolescent. Andre and his family moved to Israel in 1971, where he studied psychology as an undergraduate. In 1973, he moved to Paris, where he did a master's degree in clinical psychology, another master's in experimental psychology, and then a doctorate under Claude Bonnet, entitled Dynamic and Static Aspects of Spatial Frequency Coding. After his PhD, Andre quickly obtained a permanent position at the lab, and in the following years he traveled widely, doing postdocs and making contacts and collaborations in England, Italy, the US, and Israel. He became highly skilled in psychophysics and always gave excellent advice and intellectual stimulation in matters of experimental design and fundamental philosophical interest in the psychology of vision. He contributed important papers on the perception of motion and time, awareness and decision, and relations between perception and action. He was an active participant in the 2 main international vision conferences, twice organizing very successful ECVPs in Paris. Because of all these academic and organizational activities, he was well known in the vision science community. In fact, as a demonstration of his academic reputation, I recall when I attended my first ARVO meeting in Sarasota. When I told people I came from Paris, everybody would say, you're in Andre Goria's lab. And then they would rave about his tan or his biceps or how sexy he looked. Andre's looks were very important part of his personality. He took great care of his image. His clothes were impeccable. His office was beautifully furnished. Always tidy. He loved plants, and his were always in beautiful condition. Andre's desk was always perfectly organized, as was his email inbox and his computer files. In parallel with his well-groomed physical aspect and environment, Andre's opinions were clear and unswerving. He had strong moral and practical principles that he imposed upon himself. Not only that, but he had no compunction about telling people what he thought. He was sometimes seen as undiplomatic, uncompromising, intolerant, and demanding. Also, once you disappointed or offended him, he would not forgive you. You were either in his good books or he never talked to you again. Florian Vassac said recently that André was the most authentic person that he knew. I think that is exactly right. Of course, that meant that sometimes people, and particularly students, would have a very hard time with André, who would not try to hide his impatience or exasperation when he was dissatisfied with their work. He tolerated no mediocrity. My own feeling was that André was absolutely right about what he said generally. Just, it seemed cruel to chop down a poor student or a misinformed or confused colleague in such a radical way. And sometimes, living unswervingly by his principles led to his own undoing. A well-known case is the case where André stubbornly tried to impose his views about smoking marijuana on US immigration officials, and thereby lost his right to travel to the US. Nevertheless, I was always full of admiration for a person who so fearlessly expressed what he thought was the right thing, without worrying about what other people might think about him. André played a very important role in our lab, even before he became associate director in 2006, and later director in 2013. Back in 2000 or so, very much under André's instigation, a group of us fought to move the lab out of the psychology department to here, where it is now, in the biomedical department. This has been one major factor in the success of our lab, allowing better collaboration with neuroscience and making it easier to get scientifically minded students. Another factor has been André's constant efforts to recruit excellent colleagues. It was he who got Pascal Mamasian, Patrick Kavanagh to join the lab. It was he who recruited Florian Vassac, to name only the first few. André was also an excellent director. He knew how to delegate responsibility and take decisions. Before he took over as director, however, some people thought he was a kind of ogre, to be avoided and not to be given responsibilities. Several people told me they almost did not join our lab because André was in it. But when André became the head of the lab, these people changed their minds and came to appreciate his efficiency and conscientiousness. It was also a pleasure to talk to André about non-academic subjects. He was very interested in art, literature, and film. On the website that we've put up in tribute to him, there's a link to his own personal website where you can see a selection of his poems and writings. There's some photos he took also. Perhaps as a sad legacy to the memory that André has left us, let me point to these somber paintings that he chose for our meeting group. I myself find them horrible. Did he like them? I don't know. He told me he chose them from a national collection of popular art, and they were the best he could find. He was totally unapologetic about them. Another instance of André that we will be able to meditate in years to come. We have put up a website to progressively add tributes to André and to share memories, including photos. We hope you, his friends and colleagues, will gradually bring further material onto the site so it stimulates our collective memory of our friend and colleague André. Now I propose to read you a poem that I wrote for André. Dear friends, let me say on this day for André a poem before we begin. After all, as you know it, André was a poet and might like this one in honor of him. Already when young, he was very handsome, but as an adult, he formed quite a cult. In fact, I dare say, there was hardly a man with a nicer tan than that of our colleague André. His biceps, however, would quite make you quiver in awe and respect, I'd say. Another big thing that I'd like to say about our colleague André is that his knowledge about psychophysics excelled in every way. If ever he needed to create some confusion about an abstruse topic in vision, there was no better man, no greater fan of D primes in great profusion. He would make you a slide with so much inside that it would take you a year to peruse. Thus you could be sure it was so obscure, it would certainly give you the blues. A toast, then, to our colleague André, whose merits I wish to convey, whose looks were very soigné. His taste in art was an important part of this excellent man's cachet. He was a brilliant cook, wrote many a book. He oozed masculinité. We shall never forget how great is our debt to our friend and colleague André. Indeed, I sorely regret that it may makes me upset that you did not hear my poem today.